Story 1. Ignorance. There's so much to learn about the world we live in. So many everyday things where you just have to wonder how it all works and why. I can't fathom why people would choose to ignore it all. Story 2. Associating changing your behavior, which is often necessary for growing healthfully as a person, as not being true to myself or honoring my emotions or admitting fault, and therefore digging your heels into the worst aspects of your personality. Story 3. Fast fashion and overconsumption. I still have clothes that are over 10 years old because if they rip, I just sew or apply a patch over the hole myself. I'm not poor anymore where it was a necessity, but it has saved me a lot of money just by learning a ladder stitch and a basic stitch. I'd rather fill a landfill with tiny pieces of thread than whole outfits because they weren't in fashion or were old. Story 4. All the fuss over wedding, bridal, and bachelorette parties, as well as baby gender reveal parties, baby showers, and push presents, seems to be getting out of hand in my opinion. Go ahead if it's your thing, though. Story 5. Alcohol. Because it actually is toxic. And this is coming from someone who enjoys drinking somewhat regularly. The culture almost seems set up to glorify drinking and produce alcoholics. Story 6. Anyone with a good sob story can leverage that for real injustice against those who simply are not as convincing speakers. People are generally far too lazy to look beyond the headline or soundbite. Story 7. Grand romantic gestures. Yeah, they look cool in movies, but actually disrupting someone's wedding, stopping someone's flight, or showing up at their house at odd hours to profess your love to them is stalker behavior. Story 8. Obsession with celebrities and their lives. Like who gives a shit who Kim Kardashian is dating or Taylor Swift's workout routine? People are obsessed with the lives of elitists who do not even know you exist. Story 9. Fusion love and codependency. Finding your other half is the basis of every fairy tale and every social rule. The truth could not be farther from that. You are already whole and enough. You can, of course, share happiness with a significant other, but you don't need him or her to make you whole. Stop that nonsense that prevents people from building self-trust and seeing themselves as valuable and loving themselves. Story 10. Obsessing over one's own youth. You won't be in your 20s forever, and you need to accept and adjust to accommodate that fact. Too many in their late 30s still act like teenagers, and the midlife crisis will be awful for them when it hits. Story 11. Being extremely political to the point where every decision you make and how you live your life depends on a political party and also worshiping a politician. Story 12. The 5 a.m. morning routine. It's great if it's something you naturally gravitate toward, but promoting it as some universal game changer ignores the varying needs of individuals or limitations due to health. Story 13. The economy relies on us buying things we do not need. These items, while supporting businesses both small and large, often end up in landfills, having served little or no purpose. Toxic substances may also be involved in their production or disposal. Story 14. Influencers. Not just those who are being paid to feature random content, but especially those who think that because they have 20,000 followers, they are entitled to do whatever they want, wherever they want. Then there are the toxic fans who will leave negative reviews, expose personal information, or send threats to anyone who disagrees with the person. Story 15. Being a victim. Don't get me wrong. People should be able to talk about traumatic experiences without feeling ashamed, guilty, or embarrassed. However, it kind of feels like, at least on the internet, being a victim has gone from something tragic and unfortunate to being another way to get views, clicks, likes, and engagement online. For example, people who record themselves crying on platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts. Story 16. Popularity, especially when it pertains to social media, makes people act cruel towards everyone they perceive as lesser than themselves and promotes narcissism. Story 17. Tolerance and positivity. There's a time to put your foot down, and there's a time to face reality honestly. My God, toxic positivity is an absolutely horrendous thing. Story 18. It is all just a giant opportunity for big businesses to sell you things. Also, in my opinion, athletes should not be paid millions of dollars. They are not doing work that benefits society like teachers or firefighters do. Story 19. As far as artistic contributions go, Actors are widely overrated and oversaturated in our society. They are much less responsible for the creation of art than artists in other fields, yet actors are glorified and idolized to a disproportionate degree compared to their actual contributions. More so than musicians, writers, directors, and comedians. Because society idolizes them in this way, actors often have a heightened sense of their own importance and feel the need to share their wisdom whenever given the opportunity, even though most of them are no more educated or informed than the average citizen. Story 20. Independence. Being able to take care of yourself is one thing, but nobody can do everything by themselves, and it is not a sign of strength to never accept help. You will end up burnt out and alone, and the people around you will usually feel less connected to you. Story 21. Rebelling against the law, you should if it's harmful to your religious freedom and such. I notice more and more people texting and driving ever since they made it completely illegal to hold a phone and drive. Now police can pull you over just for that, not just as a minor offense after something else. At least in my state, I think it was more recent. It's very harmful to the people around you and yourself. These laws are supposed to be for your safety and the safety of those around you. Story 22. Violence for the sake of violence. I see too many angry, privileged young men who think the only way they can prove themselves as a man is to beat or kill someone. They are constantly imagining ways they could get away with violently acting out without getting into too much trouble. They wish they were born in the good old days just so they could participate in some glorious war. Story 23. Being real, influencer culture and people's expectations of themselves and habits, in the sense of being aware of and responding to them. Sometimes I feel like the glorification of doom scrolling and self-awareness needs to coexist within society for this culture to thrive online. In the same respect, the performance of perfectionism in actors in the sense of the influencer culture, where if it doesn't appear as the same luxurious-looking life or healthy relationship or identity to another, doesn't matter. Opinions and appearances may differ, but it doesn't matter what edits and filters are used or who agrees with what. Oftentimes, someone goes into a "it's not really going to affect me" mindset once involved and takes risks for themselves. It seems like an infinite positive-sum game. Story 24. The thing with vaping is that it's hardly been around for a decade. We have no clue what the long-term consequences could be. It's similar to how we didn't know asbestos or lead was harmful because there was a latency period before symptoms appeared. Story 25. Not taking days off and overworking yourself. You need time to be human and be yourself. You understand that you need money to survive and the value of hard work. But you also need time for humanity and caring. Story 26. Individualism. One person can do very little to benefit a society, and if it seems they have done a lot, it is either with help from other people or stepping over other people without conscience. So, individualism is rubbish. The power is in the collective, in doing things together. Story 27. Success used to mean people were content with just making ends meet, having a family, and things like that. Now you have to have expensive things, you must be married, and be at the top of the game or else you're a failure. This constant need for attention and success, especially at the cost of others, is part of why society is breaking down. Story 28. We make fun of passive-aggressive, codependent behavior. How many sitcoms have been about how a hapless husband dances on the strings of a passive-aggressive wife? For some reason, we do not identify passive-aggressive, emotionally manipulative behavior patterns as real abuse. Story 29. Prank streamers, stop encouraging foolish behavior like messing with people and then complaining when you face the consequences, expecting others to feel sorry for you. The same goes for in-real-life streamers. Story 30. Overconsumption of alcohol and drug abuse, reckless spending and showing off, idolizing celebrities, especially those without talent, alpha male content, harassing people on camera for attention, ignorance. Story 31. Musicians and their drama and personal lives. Kanye West and his wife. Kendrick Lamar versus Drake. Taylor Swift and Kelsey. Rational, mature adults shouldn't be giving the slightest concern. Story 32. Gender. Gender is very problematic. Without gender, there would be no transgender individuals. We should revert to focusing solely on biological sexes, male and female only. Items should be classified as either for humans or not for humans. The concept of assigning gender to toys, clothes, or even vegetables is unnecessary. Not everything needs a gender. Allow things to exist without one. Story 33. Representation. They invite some people from other races to events instead of inviting more talented individuals. No wonder many popular and talented Black or Asian people just decline invitations. They never want to be associated with being invited just because the event needed representation. Story 34. Toxic femininity. Being hateful to men just because they are men. Yes, there are bad guys out there, but there are bad women out there too. No matter what men do in society nowadays, it's wrong. When a woman is in a happy relationship, other women try to bring her down. They try to pick apart things and gaslight her into thinking that her relationship is bad. Oh, he holds a door for you? That is controlling behavior. Oh, he doesn't hold a door for you? He doesn't care about you. He helps you all the time and constantly tries to make you feel good? That is controlling behavior. He doesn't help you? What's wrong with him? He buys you gifts? He is trying to buy your affection. He doesn't buy you gifts? He is cheap. On and on. How about, hey, I am glad you are happy and doing great. There really are some good men out there. Story 35. Toxic love. The passionate and intense love we see in movies and novels, for example, is 90% of the time the exact definition of emotional dependency. Story 36. Social media activism quickly turns into a reactionary mess of virtue signaling for virtue signaling's sake, to not lose face against everyone else you know who is posting about an issue. Worse yet, it actually steers people away from taking meaningful action by making them feel like they've done their part after they post stuff on their stories or pages. For example, instead of actually helping out in charities, action drives, joining unions to do work with them, going to protests, helping out monetarily, and so on. So many people I've spoken to feel like they have actually accomplished something when they cross-post online stuff to raise awareness. Go have a 30-minute chat with any person to discuss a topic you feel strongly about, and you'll see that humans don't get convinced by static gotcha messages plastered everywhere. They need individual conversation and loads of it before they actually think of changing their minds. It'd also serve as a nice reminder that it is much harder to try to teach someone something when you are spending all your energy on trying to be witty and sarcastic. Teaching people is tedious work that requires a lot of compassion, dialogue, and understanding where they come from. Bullying or making fun of them requires absolutely nothing. Anyway, if anyone wants to read more about this, I recommend Log Off. Why Posting in Politics Almost Never Mix by Catherine Cross. Story 37. American media loves to glorify unpleasant individuals and paint them as rebels or tough characters. It does not matter how horrible they are. As soon as they do one nice, good, or cool thing, people love them and act like they are heroes. They cheer for Tony Soprano, Nucky Thompson, Saul Goodman, Walter White, Don Draper, and Al Swearingen. Shitty people, and people love them all regardless. Story 38. I don't care to judge anyone based on it, but why do I need to know? Live your life and do you, but why do people feel entitled to know what my preferences are, what I support and don't support, or if I'm this or that? Normalize privacy. I think it's very toxic to go around chastising people for not being overtly sexual simply because it's uncommon. Like, damn, mind your own damn business. Story 39. The whole crazy and jealous boyfriend/girlfriend narrative. It's weird to me that there are people who will be willing to risk getting into trouble because the opposite gender looked at your significant other for 2 seconds. Story 40. Having sex. Not that having sex is toxic, just that society's fascination with it is. Female virginity is seen as a commodity, whereas male virginity is a sign they are a loser or worse. Story 41. Alcohol by far. It's so sad and frustrating to see how much drinking is still glorified in American society. So many places here are pivoting into bars and hard alcohol sales, and wine bars because it's a much bigger profit margin. Even our local Axe throwing place that only had a few beer taps is now taking out 2 lanes and adding a full alcohol bar. There are a few places with non-alcoholic drinks, but they are still expensive. Story 42. Complete independence. I feel it's a bit sad not to need to rely on anybody because it means nobody relies on you either and is fueling a lot of loneliness. Story 43. Your 20s are not a special and magical time to travel the world, meet new people, and discover yourself, despite what influencers and social media may suggest. Your 20s are the time to work hard and save as much money as you can to invest in things like stocks and real estate. Compound interest is what will determine the financial success of the average working class person in retirement. Saving money and having rainy day funds, emergency funds, and assets that you can cash out will be much more rewarding in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. During these times, you may want to take family vacations, attend your child's school plays and sports events, and still have the confidence that you can put food on the table each week. If you lose your job, you will have a few months' worth of expenses and bills covered. You'll be happier that you have wealth that has compounded and doubled over the past 7 years, rather than looking back on a decade of world travel and facing a 5-figure debt or a zero in your checking account when you need to write a rent check in your early 30s.